All right, guys. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Bookage Podcast. I have the author of the book called My Redemption, Mr. Tony Kelly. Welcome, Tony. How you doing today, sir?
All good, Jay. Thanks.
You're welcome, sir.
Very
Glad to
well.
know that. All right. Well, Tony, you've worn many hats in your life:
Yeah.
professional footballer, author, and addiction recovery advocate. If someone picked up the book My Redemption without knowing your story, how would you sum it up in a sentence or two?
In a sentence or two, I'd say it's a story of hope. It's a story of faith, and it's a story of not giving up, and that can apply to anything in life, in life's challenges. So not necessarily just sport, but in general in life's challenges, not giving up.
I understand, but thanks, sir. You mentioned in the book that your daughter and sister were key in convincing you to tell your story. What finally gave you the push to go all in and write this book?
This is obviously the third book, the final book in terms of the three books I've written. So, in terms of being pushed to write this particular book, that was myself in terms of closing a chapter on writing and closing a chapter on the whole story. But in terms of the first book in 2013-14, Red Card, obviously that was influenced by my sister. Obviously talking about what was going on in the UK then in terms of gambling addiction and gambling hard with professional footballers, because obviously it was on the back end of my professional football career. And obviously with my daughter, just giving her an insight into what life used to be like for me and how I ended up with hardly anything, which obviously she was privy to. So yeah, so there's two parts of it really. It's the initial first book, and then it's coming full circle 10 years later to where we are today in terms of the final story.
Got it. And that's the reason why it is titled It's Full Time.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, growing up in the 70s as a young black boy chasing football dreams, couldn't have been easy. What challenges shaped you the most during those years?
I think the main challenge, and not is generally within society anyway in the UK, but particularly where I grew up in the Midlands in Coventry in England, there was, it's no need to pussyfoot around it. There was a lot of racism around. There was a lot of discrimination, and I think that was probably the main challenge in terms of doors opening for young black footballers to get into professional football. So in the late 70s, when I'm talking about when I'm 13, 14 now, playing local football, etc., and aspiring to be a professional footballer, particularly after watching, Brazil in the 74 and the Rebelinos and all that, Jairzinho and all that stays with me forever, always will. Real inspiration. So I think going by that and me aspiring to be a professional footballer and be like them, my idols, I suppose. But I just found that there was pathways blocked. It's just the way it was back then in terms of society in general. It's just the way it was. We talk a lot about, well, today we talk a lot about the Windrush and about our parents coming over in the 50s and 60s and having to face challenges, and those challenges continued into young black footballers in the 70s and 80s that are trying to push through into professional ranks of professional football and having a lot of doors closed, unfortunately.
Understandable, sir. Well, your twin brother Mel features heavily in the book. What kind of influence did he have on your rise through football? And did it feel when your path eventually split? How did it feel?
Interesting question, because obviously we grew up, playing football together at school team level, at local county level, and then obviously leaving school to go to Bristol City for our first sort of venture into professional football. So we're signing for Bristol City as twins and as twin strikers, in fact. So playing alongside each other, so basically living in each other's pockets, basically living in the same digs, etc. So that was great because obviously we bounce off each other. Unfortunately for us, which obviously isn't the case for everybody, but for us, we're really, really close. Some people say too close, especially our partners. But anyway, that's the way it is. We're very, very close. We bounce off each other. We have a laugh. And I just think that helped us both in terms of our development, in terms of settling in the football environment and the professional football arena, which obviously was completely new to us. So that really helped. But I suppose, as you touched upon, he got released before me, so we were split. He went back to Coventry, and I'm obviously there on my own as a 17-year-old at Bristol City. Yeah, and there's a bit of a wrench because obviously we're so used to each other, so used to each other's company. And it just so turned out that within another year or so, we're back together again,
Nice.
back in London when we moved to London at 18. So yeah, the relationship's a bit special. I think most of our family and friends know that.
Amazing, amazing. Well, in the book, you've spoken very openly about your gambling addiction. Was there a specific moment that made you realize things had gone too far?
I think along the journey, I think there's always little moments where you sort of suspect and realize that yeah, you've got an issue here. I think talking to family members, I always talk about how my gambling impacted others. So in terms of my family and my brothers and my sister, owing them money all the time and creating a huge amount of debt. Particularly getting I suppose one of the big things is getting the house repossessed. So yeah, inwardly, you've got a problem. You've got to address it at some point. But it's whether you get to that point where you actually are going to address it, and I call it today in terms of owning your addiction. So that's easier said than done. So it would take me a long, long time in terms of the denial factor, in terms of the shame factor. So all these things come into play. So it's not as easy as people think that you can just address it and stop and get help and all that. Yeah, would all love to be like that as addicts, but sometimes there comes a moment, as you said, and I think probably the biggest moment for me was when I put my story to print with Red Card, the first book, because once that was published, that's when the realization, in terms of the feedback from that book, that was the realization that yeah, this is a serious issue. I've got a serious problem now. Here's my opportunity to own it. Here's my opportunity to tell the nation, tell family and friends, open up about it, talk about it. That was the opportunity. And I think from that moment onwards, I never looked back in terms of, moving on to more positive things and coming out of the addiction.
Got it. Well, you lost a good amount. I mean, losing
Mm.
over £500,000 is not
Yeah,
a small feat. But
lab.
sometimes, yeah, but sometimes rock bottom teaches us what nothing else can. What did those darkest moments, teach you about yourself or taught you about yourself, if I may ask?
I think now when I reflect on it, and this is one of the reasons why that I wrote this final book, this final chapter, as we call it, is because it's helped me reflect on how life was along that addiction journey and how I won't call it lucky because I've got a Christian faith now, but how blessed I am that I'm still here. So when it comes to talking about how dark it got, yeah, when I think about what I've lost, not just obviously I've lost three houses in total, the financial situation, the monetary side of it, family members, there was, I suppose, fractures at some point, but they've been rebuilt. Then you've got lost friendships, and then the mental health issues in terms of sleep deprivation, anxiety, and depression. The bankruptcy, I can go on and on. There's so much that I've had to go through, that I still reflect now and think to myself, well, I've been in some dark places and living in a room with five people and no money, etc. Then I think to myself, well, I'm still here today. So for me, that gives me a sense of pride and the fact that, yeah, I obviously am more resilient than others, which is fortunate for me because we're not all the same. We're all wired up differently, and
Yep,
we all got some of us are struggle mentally, some of us are stronger mentally. So I've come out the other side, but it wasn't easy, and it took a long time. It took a lot of help, and it took a lot of support. And I think the
absolutely.
support is probably the big thing in terms of having that network of support around you.
Understandable. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, family and faith seems to be the two things that kept you grounded.
Yeah.
Um, what role did each play during your recovery from it?
Well, starting from the faith side of things, it was a chance meeting, really. It was 2009 where and this is in the book, by the way, but where I had an encounter with a chaplain when I was working for Network Rail. And I was just there on a Sunday afternoon, quiet day, no trains due, and I had a knock on the door, and it was I didn't recognise him, asked for the ID, etc. And it was a real surprise. I work alone, never had a visit from a local network rail chaplain, but that's who he said he was. Had some ID, and then he proceeded to come into the signal box and sit down with me for 2 hours with a brand new Bible. We wrote out a prayer, which I've still got today, which is also known as a salvation prayer. And he wrote that out, and we talked about life in general and where I am today and where I was at, particularly where I was at that point. Because at that point in 2009/10, I was going through the bankruptcy, I was going through the breakup of a relationship, 20-year relationship, in financial ruin, and still gambling. So I wasn't in a great place. But we talked for 2 hours, as I said. And I always say to people that it wasn't a case of when he left that signal box that day that my life is going to change and everything's going to be rosy and
Hmm.
going to be great. It wasn't like that at all. It was a very, very gradual thing. Um, and so much so that it wasn't until at the bottom of the salvation prayer that he left me with, there was the final words were, now arranged to get baptized. Those were his final words on that salvation prayer on that piece of paper. So when I look at that today, which I've still got and I use in some of my talks, is that it took 8 years later from that meeting, that chance meeting, it took 8 years to June the 7th, 2017, when I actually did get baptized in the church in Enfield. So it just goes to show that those 8 years are meant to be my recovery, my progression, till you get to a point where, in my mind, that now it's time to hand yourself over to God and live the right way and live in God's way and let God guide me. But so it's a very, very personal thing. It's not for everybody. Everyone's got their own religions and beliefs, and I respect all that. But yeah, it's really, really helped me. But yeah, even before 2017 baptism, we had our first workshop when Red Card was born, 2015, and that was at Enfield Church. So our first ever public workshop was in the local Enfield Church. So there was always a connection. There's always a sort of gradual rebuilding and a regain of my faith from around the 2014 mark to eventually getting baptized in June 7, 2017. So, and it helps me in terms of mentally. You use the word grounded, and it's right. Yeah, it helps me mentally stay grounded, stay humble, be grateful for things in life. Overcoming life's challenges. We're all going to have life's challenges. It's how you deal with it, and keep my faith, and let God guide me, and whatever will happen will happen.
Understandable. Yes, sir. Well, after everything you've been through, fame, failure, recovery, faith, what do you want readers to walk away with after reading the book, My Redemption?
I think the main thing for me is hope, because I think we touched upon it earlier about what I've lost and what I've been through in 20 years plus of the addiction, everything from the mental health side to the financial side to the emotional side. And when I think about, obviously, I've met a lot of people now that have been in this addiction space we've lived experience. And I think when I look back at my journey and now with the final book, My Redemption, out there, I want people to think that regardless of how hard it looks and how tough it is, along that journey, whatever challenges you're coming up against, they'll just never ever lose hope, because there's gamma related suicide out there now. We know that. So people
Yeah,
are in their lives are gamma related suicide. So that's just a fact. I'm blessed that I'm still here. So I always say to people, never ever give up and keep the faith and keep the hope, because literally anybody can come out of adversity and can come out of serious trauma. And I think I'm testament to that. So that's the sort of message I want to give out to people, to say, you know what, regardless of what's going on in my life, regardless of what I'm going through, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep the faith and keep the hope. And hopefully more and more people will take inspiration from that and go on to live more healthy and sustainable lives.
absolutely.
Mm.
Well, what is next for Tony Kelly? I mean, what is next
Mm.
for you? More writing,
Yeah.
expanding Red Card, or something completely different?
Mm. It's a good question, because we've done a lot in the last 10 years. Well, I'm not writing any more books, that's for starters, so we can put that to bed. My red card is say bye, yeah. That's my red card. Sorry, my redemption. Bloody hell. My redemption is now at the final book. Yeah. So no more writing. But I think the big thing for me is yes, the expansion of red card. We've been around 10 years. So we want to continue to grow as an organization so that we reach more people around the UK, educating on gambling harms, and not necessarily just the UK. We're doing some work with Nigeria at the moment. We'll probably do some work with, hopefully, in the USA, in your neck of the woods, because obviously we know gambling addiction is massive over there.
Is
So
that to yep.
we want to expand and do and work with different organizations and keep education awareness at the forefront of the gambling space, basically, and also work with all different partners. We're doing some work with the Frank Bruno Foundation the next couple of months. We're connected with them now and other organizations. So it's about collaboration. It's about working with those that have the same vision, have the same alignment with us in terms of raising awareness and educating people on gambling harms. But at the end of the day, there is hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people that are suffering gambling harms on a day-to-day basis, and it's not going to change anytime soon. We've worked the gambling commission, etc. We've been in this space for a long time, so we know not a lot's going to change. So we have to educate. So my message is, keep expanding with Red Card, keep growing, and as an individual, just keep living the right way.
Absolutely. And I think this is something, of course, you should think about moving towards my neck of the woods as well within the US. There's yeah, so that's good move. That's a good move.
Yeah.
Now, to sum it up, just last question, and I think this is very important for all of us to know. If you could go back and speak to your 16-year-old self right
Mm,
before the first professional debut that you had, what would you say to him now?
good question. Yeah, I think putting myself as a 16-year-old back now and looking at myself as I am today, I would actually say to myself, well, you know what? You want to be a professional footballer. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be distractions. And I would say, whatever you do, don't let anything distract you from what you want to be and who you want to become. So whether that's drugs, whether that's alcohol, whether that's crime, whether that's gambling, whatever those distractions around you, and that may influence you, keep them out of your life and just focus on whatever you want to do, and that is be a professional footballer.
Got it, got it. Well, I thank you very much for your time today, Tony. I wish you best of luck with the book. This is definitely something worth reading. About faith, about how to overcome struggles and how not to be suicidal, and of course, how to go ahead and get rid of the addictions. I wish you best of luck for the future, sir. It was a pleasure having you on the podcast today, and we wish you once again best of luck with the book. Thank you once again for your time, Mr. Kelly.
Thanks a lot, Jay. Much appreciated. Take care.
All right, so you take care of yourself, sir.
Yeah, mate.
All right, bye bye.